promover a ideia de princípios de drenagem sustentável, o que a gente chama de drenagem sustentável e o que a gente chama de soluções baseadas na natureza, conseguir promover isso de um modo, na China, né, que se tornasse política pública. Né? Acho que essa é a principal diferença em relação ao que se faz no Brasil e em outros países do Ocidente. Né? Não é política pública, ainda. Né? O professor Kongjian, ele fez o doutorado no GSD, né, no Graduate School of Design de Harvard. Depois, na China, ele fez todo esse trabalho, né, que ele vai provavelmente explicar aqui para vocês, de popularização do conceito e de promoção entre o poder público e outros setores da sociedade para que se tornasse, de fato, essa política pública dentro dos processos de planejamento econômico e de desenvolvimento da China, que é um país de planejamento ainda. Né? E isso faz com que o trabalho que ele apresenta aqui nos nossos painéis seja bastante especial e inspirador para nós, além da qualidade e beleza incrível que eles têm, mas pela capacidade deles estar se multiplicando de uma maneira bastante rápida e intensa nas cidades chinesas. O professor Kongjian, ele tem professor de uma escola que ele criou em Pequim de arquitetura paisagística, onde ele desenvolve em pesquisas esses conceitos, mas também ele criou esse escritório de projetos, que é o Turinscape, que faz projetos ao redor da China e mesmo fora da China, tem levado essa ideia para outros países. Já teve aqui o ano passado, no Rio de Janeiro, né? Veio agora para o Congresso do CAL. Eu achei que ele não ia voltar, né? Porque ele veio há 2 semanas atrás, ele foi para Paris, voltou, já está aqui, o cara não para. Né? É um cara com uma dinâmica impressionante. Então, isso é muito importante para nós, tê-lo aqui. Kongjian, please, venha para o palco. Thank you so much. Let me. You have your part.
Yes, it's one. I use myself. Yeah,
Okay.
Myself. Okay. It's very interesting. Okay. So I will speak in English. You have you translate into Portuguese. So thank you, Renato, for such a hospitality, such a kind invitation, and make such a successful exhibition. Whole Chinese delegations come today. 30 of them come. So that's fantastic. And also because last year your president, President Lu, come to China, and also vice president and also minister come to China. So actually I was able to invited to speak at Rio when you got a flood here in South Brazil last year. And I found it is so important to share what we have done in China. Not only because we make a great success, but I want to share with you also the bad examples. You know, what we have done messed up the nature, messed up the city. And I hope, because Brazil is still going to be developed, booming, it's a time for booming. And it is so important to have the better way, instead of keep doing the same business as usual. So today, I have friends come here to see me. I'm so moved by, like this architect come here. When we met in airport, actually, he gave me the present even. So I was so moved by your hospitality, and because we have resonate, you know. So tonight I'm talking about sponge planet. sponge city. It's different scale. The city, watershed, regional scale, and the planet scale, and they are all related. So I'm putting to this idea in the context of global climate change. It's a global issue. It's global climate change. So the planet is in crisis. Everyone knows that, right? Maybe only Trump denies that. Everyone. Otherwise, most of the people will agree that our planet is changing, is in crisis. So only bold and new thinking can save it. Yeah? We have spent 30 years trying to solve the problem. Only find it become even worse. Right? For 30 or even 50 years, we already tried to cut carbon emission, try to solve the global warming. But that's not the right solution. We have invested billions of dollars, but didn't solve the problem. So climate is still higher and higher. And climate change is not only because of warming, it's because all these kind of disasters come with climate change. Yeah? Drought, flood, habitat loss, sea level rising, of course. In China, 40% of the major cities in China will be under the water. That's a prediction. Right? So now the problem is that not because the problem is the sea level rising, problems of global warming or whatever. The problem is that we have wrong investment. We have money, but we invested in a wrong way, different direction. Make a mistake. I have to say that every year the banks, financial institute, global-wise, invested $7 trillion building all kind of negative to nature, all kind of facilities which are negative, climate negative or nature negative, including $1.7 trillion invested on those I call the gray infrastructure, concrete dams, dikes, channelize the river, paving, under the name of adaptation. Under the name of adaptation, good name, right? World banks, for example, AIIB, all the big banks, they keep building walls, they keep building, dams in Africa, even in Brazil, in Southeast China, in China and Southeast Asia. Only $0.2 trillion is invested on nature positive, which means if you invest in this, will be helping the climate. But $7 trillion, $1.7 trillion together, $8.7 trillion invested on, negative. Keep worsening, keep doing these things. Now that's the problem. Right? It's not because of climate change. It's because we are in wrong direction. For example, these are we call the gray infrastructure for climate adaptation. Building dams to create reservoir, try to fight against the drought. Pipe system, drainage, try to adapt to this sewage, the flood, urban inundation. Aqueduct, try to divert water from thousands of miles away to the city. Now, those are all called adaptation strategies. Every year, I mentioned $1.7 trillion. What's wrong with this infrastructure? They fail. You know more than me. They failed here last year, right? In Brazil. But last year, a year ago, they failed even in Libya. You can imagine, Libya is a dry land, dry city. They fail also, collapse. And certainly it's a fail. This is Kenya, right? And Brazil, of course, killing every year, killing thousands of people, right? So when we build this wall, you can protect small flood. Never protect a huge flood. It is a disastrous, huge flood that kills people, right? So make no sense. Totally make no sense to build this kind of. That's in China, right? 300 people died a couple years ago. I will show you the Zhengzhou situation. Not only that, not only is the great infrastructure will fail, or already failed. There's a saying that the dark secret that no one wanted to share is that there are only two kinds of levees. Those that have failed and those will fail. Right? Which means they will fail anyway. Right? They're going to fail anyway. Not only that, because of we dumping the concrete pipe system and pump, we create more carbon emissions. 8% of carbon emission come from concrete. Why they fail? We have to understand why these great infrastructure fail. The drainage, the dikes, the pump system fail. When they were invented in European countries, basically, early developed nations, early developed cities, the climate in those areas were very mild, very mild. Portuguese, for example, Brazil was first colonized by Portuguese. In Portuguese, climate very mild, right, at that time. So early industrialization, they built this kind of, they invented this infrastructure. Even the standard we follow. For example, New York. New York was first built by the Dutch, Netherlands model, right? Small climate change caused problem. The system was designed for 4 inches precipitation maximum daily, right? 4 inches. Last year they got 5 inches, and still get flooded. But here, in my country and here in Brazil, you get 10 times as much precipitation per day. So there's no way you can fix this problem by conventional infrastructure. They will get flooded, right? So for New York, it's an issue of comfortability. For Paris, it's an issue of comfortability. But for Brazil, it is an issue of survival. For Southeast Asia, for monsoon region, China, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, South American, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, you will see you have totally precipitation pattern. That's a failure in China, and a failure in Beijing because you see we have this similar climate situation like here. We call the monsoon climate. That's Jakarta, Sao Paulo. You can see you have dry season, you have wet season. Right? As in India, more. Right? We have colleague working in India, Mumbai. Yeah, the same. That's why all the cities in the global south, basically we say, Baghdad will fail. That's in Brazil, right? So it's so simple. Because all the cities, the global south, following the global north, and the global south accounting for 80% of global underdeveloped, and the following is what's being invented in those early developed nations. That's why most of the cities in the world failed, right? It's failed anywhere, particularly in the global south, because we have totally different kind of climate, right? That's the reason. Certainly Brazil now we have more serious problem, not only because we have flood, but we have drought now. Yesterday, I have 2-hour conversation with Professor Carlos Nobel, a very, very influential scientist. And we share the same idea. I say totally, he is promoting the green sponge movement in Sao Paulo, actually. So because you cut the forest or whatever, you agriculture, you remove this nature's sponge, you cause the regional or even global climate change, right? That's why that's Amazon. You have drought. So you have drought, you have pollution, that's a pollution, and you have flood. All these problems. And also, we have to understand that when we talk about the sea level rising, most of the people talking about ice cap melting, right? And the thermal expansion. And very few people talk about actually we squeeze the land itself. The groundwater draw out. The wetland disappear. 80% of wetland in the global surface disappear. And the 30% of groundwater dropped. And all those water go to the sea. Okay? 40%. 40% of sea level rising is actually contributed from the land itself. Right? So that's why we are talking about water. When you fix the water, when you balance the water on the global surface, recover the planet sponge, you will at least reduce the sea level rising by half. Now and beyond that, water is a holistic solution. So when we talk about, okay, if no great infrastructure, we're talking about nature-based solution. Planting a tree, recover a park, restore a wetland, all these are nature-based solutions. Too huge, too many. Everything can be nature. So you only have 2 trillion investment. Where are you going to invest? Right? Where are you going to invest? That's my target. Where's the key? Where's the key? That can solve the problem holistically and more efficiently. Minimum budget. Right? The key is water. Water as an infrastructure. Right? That's why I promote this idea called a sponge city and a sponge planet. Restore the sponge. Right? And the land-based, water-driven solution compared to carbon-driven solution. We are talking about the work on the land, work with water, because it's touchable, it's manageable, it's scalable, it's connected to everyone. Carbon, maybe yes. I'm certainly agree. Carbon certainly we need to reduce, not because of carbon itself, because it causes pollution also, right? By emission. Coming with carbon emission, also pollution. So that's no problem. But water can be more important in this case because it is a holistic solution. Minimal investment, you can maximize the benefit and holistic benefit, multiple benefit. And this infrastructure based on water and land-based water-driven solution, I called 3 principles to create the sponge system. Simple solution. Retain water, slow down water, embrace water. Maybe too simple, right? Everyone, okay, makes sense, common sense. But you forget that today, all the great infrastructure engineer following opposite solution, totally opposite principle. We build a dam to accumulate water. We channelize the river, speed up, right? Flush away, speed up. And we build a wall to fight against water. Totally opposite. For 300 years, the whole industrialization is based on those principles. Speed up, accumulate, fight against it. All right? So that's why we virtually revolutionize so far we call the industrial civilization. Totally upside down, backed these three. So we have built this infrastructure. You can see in Sao Paulo, so typical, so typical. Yeah, I was so lucky to have meet many people, to travel to see how Sao Paulo been transformed from a nature sponge system into a concrete infrastructure, concrete river. All the river been concrete, channelized. 800 river been buried, been concrete, turned into concrete in Sao Paulo. You can imagine. So that's why that's a great infrastructure solution. And we still have the mindset. We're still investing in that, right? The bank still interested in keep investing in this infrastructure. Now, the other infrastructure we call the ecological infrastructure, the land-based water-driven solution infrastructure, which is a holistic infrastructure, holistic solution. What means holistic? When we think about holistic, we have the term called ecosystem services. You know? Ecosystem services, provision, regulation, life supporting, and the spiritual, cultural services. The 4 categories of ecosystem services. So this infrastructure is actually an ecosystem. Yeah? We create that provide holistic ecosystem services. And it must be across the scale. National scale, regional scale, local scale, and this project, site specific. So we need a big picture. That's what I did when about 25 years ago, I did a national planning for China. What if we demolish, what if we remove all the concrete? What kind of infrastructure should look like? Right? And a regional scale. Now, the Beijing case is become a policy. Okay, become a policy. Regional scale, like Sao Paulo, we have 1,000, 2,000, or even in Beijing, 20,000 square kilometers in size. We need all this gray, blue infrastructure, blue and green together, at a local scale, at the central city, and eventually, following this planning, create infrastructure. So that's a thinking model. So then, from the planning to the engineering scale, you need a new engineer, a nature-based engineer, not those gray concrete-based engineering. Now that's challenging. Okay, that's challenging because we celebrate industrial civilization because they have developed these all models, calculable data, simulating also water velocity and create all this engineer. So that's industrial engineering. From agricultural, very primitive indigenous people here, like India, already use very primitive nature-based engineering solutions. Sip tank, for example, clean water, right? Recycle nutrient. And weirs. Native people already know how to use weir to slow down water. Industrialization, we use concrete, powerful, strong, efficiency, speed up, fight against. 3 principles create totally different infrastructure. So the next infrastructure, which is a new civilization, I have to say, nature-based ecological infrastructure. Because the city, or in Latin, in English or Latin Pacific, basically civilization. The city is a symbol of civilization. And all the cities is built upon infrastructure. So different kind of infrastructure mean different kind of civilization. So next stage, we will post-industrial civilization or ecological civilization should be nature-based. Right? A totally new infrastructure. Otherwise, we will be still in this called industrial civilization. So from agricultural civilization to industrial civilization to future ecological civilization, we need to begin with infrastructure and the technology, which is nature-based technology. And the inspirations come from monsoon culture. By the way, the monsoon culture is exactly what you have experienced here. Dry season, wet season. Except monsoon is more dramatic. We only have 3 months wet season. And you have half and half almost. So remember, the indigenous people how to manage water. With terracing the slope to catch a storm, to catch water. For rice paddy, we even grow rice on the slope, as Yunnan in China, early people, and similar in Indonesia, as in China and India, similar. And you have too much water in the delta area, in the floodplain, pond and dike system. Different model, but same idea, to mitigate water. Right? Too much water, too little water. And city is the same. So we did 100 city research on the Chinese floodplain, which is a Yellow River floodplain. For 2,000 years, the river, the Yellow River, wiped out almost the whole plain, So about 100 cities, Chinese cities, suffering this flood every year for 2,000 years almost. That's why the Chinese cities get to learn how to adapt to the water. Now that's amazing. It is a lab. It's a living lab. For 2,000 years, a living lab. So you get so much data. And we ignore that for the past 30 years, 40 years, because we think that those infrastructure invented in London, in Paris, will work. Certainly will fail. The great infrastructure fail. And meanwhile, we will forget this indigenous, local knowledge, nature-based solution. So that's why the whole idea is that how can we recover, upgrade? I mean, recover not mean we go back to the primitive agriculture, of course. We have totally upgraded society now. We need to upgrade those and test that. Performance test, strengthen the design, and create a modularize it. Why? Because today we have very powerful machine. We cannot do like the Indian do. We have to make a modern technology work. That's why it can very efficient. One machine can do the park in 1 year. That's possible. So that's the solution. So it is a combination of science and indigenous knowledge. And these indigenous knowledge are based on 2,000 years living lab. Life and death. Those are very, compared to 200 years great infrastructure, we have 2,000 years of green infrastructure. Right? That can be helpful. So such as those models, terracing, weiring, diking and ponding and islanding. Now that's a module based on indigenous people. No, not enough water, terrace it. Keep the water on slope. In the river, when water too fast, slow down. Flooded, swamp, pond and diking, cut and fill. In the water, in the lake, islanding. That's Aztec people, right? That's Mexico. We have the floating garden, cultivating in the water. So those are knowledge. We can upgrade it, modularize it, and create this system and apply it to solve today's problem, of course. So that's a whole model, what we tested, been implemented. That's why we can build 1,000 projects in China in very short period of time in more than 250 cities. I just want to give you a couple examples to show how this can be done. So this is in Sanya City. Similar climate, tropical area, a dry, flood, and pollution. So the blue system, you can see we did this infrastructure planning. Most of the area, flood and people have no conflict. So it's okay. Flood is a natural process. Only those red area, flood and the people, the city are in overlay. So those are the area you need to do, we call it acupuncture, right? Ecopuncture, to fix those problems. That's by the sponge, we call it sponge park, for example. That's the situation that today, that's the existing situation in 2015. That's the solution. Terracing, ponding, islanding, and certainly you need to holistically consider biodiversity recovery, heating, urban heat, cleansing of water. That's a before and after. 1 year. 1 year, we finish it. That's a couple years later, you will see such a dramatic change. And you have a sponge landscape. 4 meter, above 4 meters, you have skywalks. So the water can be flooded 4 meters. Right? Canopy can be flooded even. That's why. And most of the time, you have an underneath pass. Right? It's an island, a very small island, cut and fill, minimum earthwork. And we do have this flood season, you see? Flood season, dry season, you see? Flood season, dry season. Yeah. Beautifully adaptive to this climate. That is in dry season, people use. Suddenly birds come back to the city. Right? Hundreds of birds come to the city, right in the middle of the city. And they're productive because the water is full of nutrient. Remove the nutrient taken by the fruit trees. So you see fruit trees, you see? People can pick the fruit trees. That's what we did. The day before, I visited you have a linear park, beautiful linear park. That's why I suggest you should maybe more fruit trees, right? Mangoes, bananas, and mulberries. Skywalk in the night. During the COVID, people use this park from building to building, connected, all connected. That's skywalk, you see, before and after, as I said. So the problem solved. Drought, flood, you see, that's a flood. Before the project was built, after the project built, flood concentrated in this park area. And not only that, the sponge park, become a catalyst for urban development. You see, in just 5 years, buildings built surrounding this park. The property value increased 400%. 400%. So that's why I can see the great potential here in Sao Paulo in some of those so-called shantytown or safari area. They usually occupy the most beautiful area, actually, by the way. Wetland, the park, the river, most beautiful area. And so cheap, the lands are so cheap. And if you can solve the problem holistically, you can double, triple, quadruple the property value, and it solves the problem. Housing, park, clean the water at the same time. So that's during the flood, after the flood. Right? Now this I did a comparison Bogota because this is the same talk. I'm going to similar in Bogota, have the same problem compared to here. You have the same kind of climate. Actually, in Rio, I have the same kind of climate also. Here in Bangkok, same problem. Right in the middle of the city, paved, concrete, long field, a tobacco factory. 2019, during the COVID, we were invented. Now we actually won the competition, and use a model. As I said, use one machine. You see, one machine, cut and fill. 1 year, finished. A park about 70 hectares. Altogether actually 50 hectares about. The whole park is about 70 hectares. And during the COVID, they have no skilled labor. So they can only use the army to do it. That's in the process, a year later. All right? Factory, we keep the factory, porous factory, turning into a sports center. And the museum also. That's aerial, bird eye view. That's today. You see? Yeah. It was considered to be the most beautiful park in central Bangkok. All right. That's the park. So it can be flooded. 50 hectares, can regulate 500,000 of cubic meter of storm water. Because Bangkok is one of the most vulnerable cities in the world. So this park demonstrates how can we solve the problem of urban flood. Meanwhile, we created this system, constructed wetland to filter the storm water and the polluted river water. The river nearby is heavily polluted. A similar situation as Sao Paulo, actually. You see, compared to here. And it become clean. Clean enough for people to touch, actually. And 110 species of birds come into the city, become an education center. As I said, army do it. Right? You don't need a skilled labor, actually. If you create this modular, certainly very efficient, right? $8 per square meter in total. I'm going to share. Very cheap compared to normal park. It's only maybe 30% or 20% even, of the cost. The second principle is to slow down, right? So that's my own hometown. That's one of my first projects about how can we demolish the concrete, right? That's a flood wall. That's a build. So we convince the local mayor to demolish the concrete and become terraced and slow down the flood. To show you this project holistically, another project similar, but more systematically, I want to show you this kind of situation. Exactly like here, Hitachi River here, right? Here, you can see pollution, flood, drought, and concrete rivers. A river runs slow, about 1.5 million people. River runs slow. Demolish the concrete, remove it. All right? You don't need the concrete here. And let us discover, daylighting only discovers the tributaries. You have 800 discovered, right? Because water has memory. Storm water always takes the old track. If you build something here, it gets flooded. That's why you, as much as possible, and catch it whenever they meet some area, create, whenever you get a chance. Any piece of land available, combine them together, create a sponge, right? Wetland, sponge. So that's for example. So that's a systematic planning. So you need a systematic planning. I know that Sao Paulo yesterday, the day before, we have a very good conversation with our infrastructure counselor, infrastructure ministry. That's wonderful. You have so beautiful data already. So drainage system. So like that, similar to this kind of, right? So if we can follow that pattern, you can eventually transform this kind of landscape like that. Yeah. I visited this river called the River Paco, right? River Paco is a stadium, near the stadium. Underneath is a water tank, you channelize it, paved with a parking, concrete parking, impermeable. So that's the idea I can share, that slow down water, filtrate it, right? It generates biodiversity and beautiful at the same time. Catalyst urban development in the valley. All the buildings just happened once the park was built, because the park is so attractive, like that. The filtration process, dirty water become clean water, and the pollution removed. So we have the performance data, biodiversity, pollution, storm, peak flow, flood, and certainly perception. How people love it. How people love this kind of landscape. I'm not talking about small project. I'm talking about the whole river can be done like that. This is a very recent case in China's Jiangxi province, a river, a big river, flooded every year. So that's what we built in 1 year actually. This was before. Riparian floodplain, very badly degraded, all right? And invasive exotic species, invasive species. The solution is, as I mentioned, ponding, islanding, terracing, retain water, sponge river. We create a sponge river, retain water as much as possible, slow down water flow, and embrace water. Now that's a flood happening last year. You can see the park got flooded. But meanwhile, we have 5 meter skywalk above the canopy. It's okay underneath the flood, above the people's daily life, connected. That's after the flood. So that's resilient. You see, that's the city. So if you give this piece of land to the water, the city will be much more resilient, more safe. You don't have to build the wall, because we convince the city mayor to stop building the wall. Instead, build a sponge park. As have multiple benefit. That's a public space. Become public space. You see, underneath. And as a project, as I mentioned, embrace. We're talking about embrace water. This is a Xianglao project. So why it is holistic? It's always integrated with other problem to solve altogether. Water is a magic. It's a magic. You can fix everything by water, actually. So if you can manage water by well, thank you. Yeah, water is everything. So in this park, we call it Fishtail Park. Yeah, this year just got the Excellence Award of American Society of Landscape Architects. Flood, 20-year flood, dry, that's a master plan. So design a park, cut and fill, simple. Right? You don't need an expensive budget. So we create this kind of landscape. 1 year built. Yeah, that's you can see in the city, within the city. Right now it becomes the center of the city. Islands, all these islands, all can be flooded. As during the fall, during November. Terraces, ponds, islands, skywalks. Look how many people use this space. How many people? Right? Thousands of people. They love it. Very immersive experience of the nature. Immersive experience in the nature. and messiness, diverse, all kind of species come back to the. You don't have to plant it. As I said, water. If you have water, you have everything. Life, right? That's why biodiverse come with water. That's why. That's taxodium, and you have this different kind of experience. People even sell goods in the park, shopping in the park. No. Certainly, you need to do it beautifully. No, that's the key. That's important. We are not just environmentalists. We are designers. We are architects. We are planners. We have to have a sense of beauty. No, that's important. That's why, yeah, beauty is part of the surfaces of nature. We have 4 categories of surfaces. Beauty is the cultural surfaces. That's why I think make architects different from engineers, make different from pure scientists, or make different from pure environmentalists. Yeah, that's why, and for everyone, okay, for everyone. That's the design. As a pavilion, I think a pavilion, platform, and the material also. We need to think about materials. They can be washed, clean very easily. These are made of metal, aluminum. You flood it, wash it. That's it. Minimum investment, minimum care. That's platform design. As I said, always design beautifully. That's important. People love it, people enjoy it, and people can, come here. Embrace water. So we are talking about sea level rising. The whole world is talking about it. New York is going to build a wall, do you know? New York going to build a wall. That's ridiculous, I'll say. And Indonesia built a wall also along the coast. Now, this case, I have to say, remove the wall. Under construction. This wall under construction. The government building, dumping so much concrete. So to prevent the city from being sea level rising or surge, right? My solution, I'm lucky to make a successful convince the mayor to stop that wall. But not only stops at the wall, we remove the wall. Remove the wall. Why? Because sea level rising is millimeters, okay, it's small. The problem is the surge, the typhoon, the storm, which you cannot prevent. Because typhoon can be 10 meters, 15 meters, or even 20 meters. How can you build a wall 20 meters to surround the city? Make no sense. So instead of doing that, we remove the wall and let the water come in. Like the surge. When the surge come in, it will slow down. Right? Just slow down. Right? Like play Tai Chi, we play Tai Chi, not boxing, right? Boxing will never win. The water always win. That's a lesson. But the box it, that's a site. That's a wall is under construction, you see? Under construction, long wall, high wall, we remove it. Totally remove it. And let the seawater come into it. When the seawater come in and the fresh water come from the mountain, you create the blackish water. Now the blackish water is very good for mangrove. You have mangrove here. Right? That's blackish water. That's why we create a habitat for blackish water. That's 2 years later, you will have this kind of landscape. Naturalized, very natural. But again, certainly, you need to make this for people, right? That's the pavilions. We have 5 pavilions, interlocking fingers. As nature, totally nature, islands, and here people come here to use it. Immersive, allow people to use the space. And certainly, people love it, enjoy it. Right? Very simple, but certainly because we have storm, we can use concrete. You have to use concrete. Yeah. Similar case. That's similar. That's Bangladesh. That's Bogota. That's Colombia. I have to show a real similar. Yeah, real similar. I have slides. These can be solved also. So I want to show you similar project in China. What we did. That can be a reference. Shanghai. 14 years ago, we have this expo, right? This heavily polluted Huangpu River, and it's a conventional solution, build a wall, right? Because it's a flood. So those are all multiple problems. We give this strip very narrow, 80 meters maximum, 80 meters. And the hydrological engineer said we need to build a high wall because we had to protect the city from 500-year flood. God knows how 501 year happened, you know. It makes no sense, 500-year flood, build such kind of wall. So we actually say that we convince the mayor, instead of building the wall, we make use of the repairing flood area to create a water cleansing system, create a wetland, construct a wetland system to clean the river. It's so heavily polluted, right? There's no way to pump the water into the sewage plant because it's too expensive. You cannot afford to clean the river, called the no-source pollution. So this nature-based solution, clean the water by that. Cascade wall, falling water to aerate, put the oxygen in the water, so the water become fertilizer, can be used by plant. So that's before the season, early spring. Now that's during this season, right? Vegetation, they're so happy because nitrogens, phosphorus, dirty means fertilizers here. So all trees, all vegetation love it. That was a site. That was terracing, right? Like agriculture. That's when it grows. It's only 6 months. Abundance. Vegetation, native vegetation, grass, tall grass. And when the water run out of this 1 mile, 1,700 meters, 1 mile, every day produce 400 cubic meters of water per hectare. From salt and dirty water to the clean, crystal clean water. Not potable, but swimmable, right? Swimmable water. That's why I was thinking that we will have performance test data. So that's why I'm thinking when we visit the Hitachi River here, you have a couple of rivers, those can be done like that, right? Certainly you need a primitive treatment system before they running into the park. So that's today's park. You have solid waste also. People tell me you have many these kind of piles of solid waste, dumps. Now this is a case, what I did in China. To terrace the urban debris, create a sewage treatment system. Right? By leading water from the top to the down, you actually clean the water. Meanwhile, you create a park and make use of the dump. As our test, 80% of the pollutant can be removed by the natural process. The ocean, we're talking about a big scale. The whole ocean is polluted. In China, particularly in Bohai Sea, we're talking about 700,000 square meters of polluted ocean. What we did, now certainly that's only a pilot project. It's not the whole project yet, but it's a pilot project. Turns the coastal area into a sponge. Catch the urban runoff, the chemical, the fertilizer from the farm can be removed by this process. Now that's how we can build in 1 year. Yeah, in 1 year. Beautiful today. Yeah. We have to think systematically. Right? Systematic. This is not just one goal, one solution, one project. Systematic solution. Infrastructure we're talking about. This is a high-core project which is on exhibition here. Flood, pollution, concrete, Same, exactly the same. It's in tropical climate. And the engineering, keep doing this. Dredging every year, come here, dredge it, think can clean it. And higher the wall, right? That's always millions. $1.7 trillion invested like that, global-wise. So we remove the concrete, totally remove it, get rid of those. I think most of the river here can be get rid of like that. Right? You don't need the concrete to protect erosion actually, because you can have living wall, right? Terrace it, the riverbank, whenever possible. Terracing riverbank, right? Catches the stormwater runoff. All the stormwater runoff can be catched by terracing the riverbank, filtered, and we even build a sewage treatment system, nature-based sewage treatment system here at the corner, lower left corner. That's a sewage treatment system, primitively removing the bad smell, the smell, and the bacteria. The rest of them, which means the nitrogen and the phosphorus, the nature do it. The vegetation will do it. You see? Clean water produced by the whole process and create such a beautiful park. Thousands of people come here every day. The solution, again, is simple. De-industrialization or de-channelization. I think maybe that's the thing. If you don't do today, you have to do 20 years later. You have to do it. That's today's river. Yeah, the river. Come to the water, close to water. Yeah, all concrete gone. And they suddenly recycle the concrete. The concrete turn into island. As island become birds island. Habitat. So that's a sewage treatment system. You see, the water run out. Yeah, the water run out. Clean water. Okay, clean water. Through all this process, all the wetland, construct wetland. By the way, it's beautiful, right? They're beautiful. People love it. And this is clean water from sewage. From sewage, literally. Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. You have such a beautiful, landscape, and you have space. I saw you have space along the river. Yeah. Renato just showed me he did this planning. Yeah. So those area can be not only for flood, but also cleaning water at the same time, multifunctional. That's 80% of the nutrient can be removed. 80%. For example, we have another big project. I just show you how systematically this can be done. When people ask me, are you optimistic or pessimistic? I'm very hopeful because we have experienced the same problem in China. Not long time ago, just 10 years or 15 years ago, this is a project, 10 years ago in China, the same problem, even worse. That's today, yeah. But to do systematically. The river, water quality, pedestrian park, bikeways integrated, always one budget for all kind of benefit. Active place, accessibility, restore the river, meandered, let more nature to contact with the whole process, that before, and there's a rendering. As the wall, you have similar. As a wall, that's today. You see, that's today. As was before, that's today. That's today. Yeah. That's the same river, you see? The same point. In 1 year, we turn the dirty water to become a swimmable water. Is that possible? Yeah, of course. That's the case. That's the case. Yeah. So, sponge Brazil. That's my hope because Brazil is such a vast landscape. That's the backyard of the God. Okay, that's the backyard of the whole world. That's a hope. If we can fix, or if we can somehow make Brazil work, the whole world will be happy. That's I think, because I trust. So this is Brazil. That's my point. You have the problem. Last year I give a talk like that because of the flood problem. Yeah, you're familiar with that. When you analyze it, you can see the flood come upstream. Okay, so the flood comes from upstream, from the. So it is, you cannot fix here. You cannot fix here. There are three kinds of flood: the local flood, regional flood, which is caused by river, and the global flood, which is sea level rising. So urban inundation, regional flood, sea level rising. You have to consider this is a regional flood. We have to solve the problem upstream. That's topography you have. You can see. Actually, fairly beautiful topography. You can see all the tributary. If you catch water there, if you catch water in the tributary, you virtually solve the problem. No water, come down. Minimum water, you solve the problem flood. And that's not a big investment, by the way. So that's why, first of all, you need a local solution, which is a sponge city, urban inundation. But certainly you have to solve upstream, which means you need a regional solution. Sponge farm or sponge watershed. Why don't you create a pond in the farm? Each farm you need a space for water. Now that can be fairly inexpensive, fairly cheap. And certainly you need in urban area, you need a local sponge system. So altogether, XLLMS, large scale, regional scale, local scale. That's systematic thinking. Yeah. So that's I see the slides I'm using for call. You will see similar. I give you an example how I fix Zhengzhou flood. After the flood, we have a similar watershed. So much damage, but the water comes from upstream. So this is what we did is analyze of the water stream. The topographic, the sponge system can be upstream. Downstream, too late. So different solution downstream. That's in the city. That's in the city. So that's the upstream solution. We did this simulation, how much little terrace, how much little pond is needed, actually. You can virtually solve the problem. 10% maybe, okay? 10%, you catch all the water upstream, in the farm, on the slope. That's a simulation going. And during the process, conventional solution, you see, channelize it. So we remove the concrete, de-channelize it as a solution. De-channelize, put forest in the canal as a rendering. At the end, embrace water. For example, as a before, this is after. So let water to be emerged, to be green and blue to be together. So that's the whole island. Many islands, many trees in the river to slow down. That's a simulation based on simulation. We created the landscape, remove the concrete like that, turn it into island, river channel. This was destroyed like before. This was after simulation, rendering, built. That's built. We're under construction. Yeah, and certainly you like this rendering. Yeah, and at the end, you needed to allow designer, allow city to be able to adapt to it. So those are three levels. For example, this at the end, build a city like that. Right? Slow down, little wear, no high dam not only too expensive, but too dangerous, because like a time bomb, it collapse someday, and killing thousands of people. Little wear, go all the way to the upstream, to the tributaries like that, and you eventually solve the problem. So this construction. So when we talk about Brazil, it's my dream. Yeah, it's really, that's why tomorrow I go to Pantanal. I go to Pantanal to experience real sponge planet. It's a real sponge planet. And it's been destroyed. The Brazil agriculture of China. China import is number one importer of Brazil goods like that. But I hope really not like that, soybean, wheat, and no place for water. Why you can just leave a pond, 10% of the land. The pond is more productive actually. You can grow fish, you can cultivate fish and cultivate lotus, you can cultivate edible wet plant. Yeah? So you see, no place for water, no place for frogs, no place for birds, mammals. So that's, I think, that's my experience, my own farm, my own childhood experience. All the blue, the green area, actually seasonal pond. In wet season, it's full of water, whole water. The dry season, we have dry season, certainly half a year of dry, we recycle the water. Meanwhile, you recycle the nutrient because over 50% or 60% of chemicals overused in the farm, they run into the river. But if you can catch them in the pond, they can be recycled. They can be taken away by trees or taken away by all kinds of vegetation. So these are resilient sponge farm. That's why I think the sponge farm may be more important than the sponge city here in Brazil because it's such a vast landscape, and it can be like that, right? Can be like that, beautiful. So that's because I visited Rio last year. I make a proposal to mayor to say, why don't we transform that lake into this kind of landscape? I took he's very kindly, the mayor very hospitable. He ordered a helicopter. I will see whole Rio, and I find that there are some places we can, acupuncture, fix it. The lake is one, the river. Anyone from Rio, this river, terrible river, yeah. And this can be, and you have space. You have space. Right? You can easily be transformed. Can easily. I would say 1 year. 1 year, you can be transformed. Yeah, and like that. That's what I did in high court. 1 year, we transformed this to this. And not only that, because when you transform it, you discover the value. You're mining the value. The gold is in the water. The property value double, triple. So that's I'm thinking, from very primitive indigenous knowledge, adaptation to climate change, monsoon climate. We have 2,000 or even 3,000 years of living lab. We can use those data, upgrade those data, test those data, and create modern modular approach. We call it sponge city. From sponge watershed to sponge city and to sponge planet to solve today's problem. We have terrible problem today, certainly. That's why you need a big picture. But this picture, this vision is implementable, is actionable. It's not something far away in the sky like carbon dioxide. It is here. So it is a land-based, water-driven, beginning from your backyard, right? From across the scales, we can transform the city, the watershed, the farm, and the planet as a whole. That's my solution to the planet. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's such a so beautiful conference. Mas vou falar em português. I need to speak.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Bem, antes de abrir, eu abri para debate, né, para questões. Estou vendo a sala lotada, super contente. A gente deve estar com umas 150 pessoas aqui. Muito obrigado por terem vindo. E essa conferência vai ficar gravada e a gente vai disponibilizar na internet. Então isso vai ser bastante útil para as nossas aulas. Primeiro, antes de iniciar a gente podia sentar. We could sit here.
Okay.
Yeah? More informal. Antes de começar a abrir a palavra, eu queria dizer que tudo isso é verdade, pelo menos pelo que eu vi, né? Eu visitei alguns parques o ano passado, em Xangai, e realmente fiquei muito impressionado pela maneira como eles funcionam desse modo, né? Quer dizer, você encontra essa situação, o Parque de Hutong, que é um dos primeiros parques, ele é toda uma área de estaleiro que foi transformada em parque para a exposição de 2010, Xangai 2010, e o tratamento da água acontece desse modo, né? E há um setor de tratamento que fica sem acesso, né, um pouco isolado, por causa ainda que está em processo de despoluição da água que vem do rio. Depois, quando ele chega para a área do parque, é tranquilo, você vê a água limpa, não tem odor, né, e vai ainda passando por uma limpeza, né, até chegar ao lugar onde ele é bombeado para reuso no próprio parque. Então, isso 1,5 km, mais ou menos, de comprimento, por 80 metros de distância, muda completamente a margem de um rio, que é um rio de nível do mar, né, que é onde tinha o porto, toda a região portuária, que foi removida de lá. Então, acho que essas experiências, elas são na escala dos problemas que nós temos aqui. Nós não estamos falando de cidades pequenas que tem que arrumar um córrego, né? A gente está falando de cidades de 10 milhões de habitantes, de 20 milhões de habitantes de região metropolitana, Rio de Janeiro 7, quer dizer, que é o tamanho dos problemas deles também. Então, acho que nesse aspecto a conversa é muito próxima nessa colaboração. Eu vou começar fazendo uma provocação essas técnicas todas exigem terra, espaço. Como conquistar esse espaço?
Well, first of all, as I said, I'll remove it, yeah. How can we get the land? So yesterday, actually, we visited, talk about this, we met so many people yesterday, today before. So originally, you have the land. So early people build very wisely. They build on the top, on the mountain, but leave the drainages open. You have thousands of drainage, small drainage, which is beautiful topography. It's not a big drainage. You have small drainage made of like cells. So naturally, you have a beautiful sponge system. But eventually, you fill it with concrete. So it's there. If you change the mindset, you have the area. I don't see compared to Mexico, you're much better. Compared to Mexico City, you have much more your luxury in terms of land, available land. You know, that's why I think it's not that difficult. The only thing is that, for example, I visited the linear park. You guys did, beautiful, beautiful linear park, and so I don't think land is a problem, but you just dumping the concrete too much.
To free land for
free
real
land.
estate. Now we dumped the land, the channels, just to free space for real estate to build buildings and to transform the. Não, desculpem, estou falando.
Yeah.
E a gente entope a terra para liberar espaço para a utilização imobiliária das áreas. Então, isso que seriam as áreas de água, né, as terras inundáveis, elas se tornam terras que continuam inundáveis, né, porque aumenta a impermeabilização, aumenta o volume de água que corre nesses cursos d'água e se inunda, né, todo o cálculo hidrológico se torna inútil, né, para esse escoamento. Então, realmente, esse tipo de princípio, que é um princípio do sistema de drenagem sustentável, que hoje é bastante comum em vários lugares, ele adquire um ponto, é o último comentário que eu faço antes de abrir para vocês, e que eu gosto muito quando você colocou na nossa primeira conversa. Esses sistemas, ele tem que ser o sistema estrutural da transformação das cidades. O sistema verde e azul tem que ser o sistema estrutural. A cidade tem que acontecer em função e se transformar em função da liberação de espaço para que aconteça esse tipo de intervenção. Todo o nosso pensamento é no sentido de reduzir esse espaço para liberar espaço para a circulação e para a exploração imobiliária dessa cidade. Então, essa mudança é uma mudança difícil. E aí a última questão para você. Até onde eu entendo, a terra na China é pública, propriedade pública, que é cedida para os investimentos. Qual é a regulação para isso e se prevê essa regulação, a liberação desses espaços para a drenagem verde, a Esponja City?
Yeah, so you need a master plan at the beginning. I can see you have master plan. You have master plan. So following the master plan. But certainly, first of all, master plan must be nature-based. That's number one. You really need not a Brazilian like kind of master plan. You really need a nature-based, particularly water-based master plan. So keep all the drainage open, right? That's a master plan, nature-based solution, and protect those area. Number one, like you cannot just enforcement. Then you need a legal law enforcement. No one should be able to take any of the land from those areas. That's most important. Secondly, I can see the land can be used in a multifunctional way. For example, the stadium area, I visited the river Pequim. It was a river, Pequim River. You just bad design. It's a bad design. You can make a wise design to remove the concrete, to cover the green space, and you put 100 units. You make money from that. It can be a big investment. It can be good investment. So it is a mindset. I think it's a mindset and a priority. What kind of priority are you giving? You give it to parking lot, or you give it to green space. Maybe that's you need to make decision. Parking, everyone need parking. That's too much. I mean, it's almost, if you pave the whole city, it is not enough for parking. No, not enough for parking, right? So that's why I think you need to give a priority. What's the most important? Flood is a matter of survival. See, remember how much you lost last year. How much one flood, how much you lost. So if you use that money to invest in this kind of green infrastructure, you make money already. Yeah. So make a water resilient sponge city is not a waste, it's not a cost, it is an investment which you get a return, which you get much better return. Yeah.
Perfeito. Bem, muito obrigado. Eu vou abrir para debate. Quem tem questões para colocar? Comentários? 1, 2, 3 e 4.
Obrigada. Obrigada, adorei a tua apresentação, a tua fala. Eu queria perguntar, porque as pessoas gostam muito das árvores, mas elas também têm medo das árvores, medo das raízes que crescem, medo das folhas. E eu tenho uma conversa para educá-las, para que não tenham medo das árvores. E elas também têm medo da água. Elas gostam da água, mas têm medo que a água cheire, têm medo que cheguem perto da água. Eu acho que em São Paulo, insetos, se você tem alguma sugestão para a gente dizer às pessoas para que elas percam um pouco o medo da água.
Well, as I said, design make a difference. Design beautifully, right? If the water is dirty, mosquitoes coming, of course. But you can design water as an ecosystem, which have fish, frogs, vegetation. Mosquito will be eaten. Larva will be removed by dragonfly, by frogs. Now, this water will be beautiful. I think to say people afraid of water, afraid of tree, is not necessarily true. When you look at where the wealthy people live, I can immediately see that the wealthy property actually in the green area, right? So it's not certainly it's a culture, because we have this need triangle, need. If you're poor, you just don't care about water, about beauty. But you become richer, you care about the beauty, about, Brazil, I can see you have 3% increase, or 4% increase every year. More and more people will need a more better environment. So that will change the value. Yeah.
Obrigado.
Yeah. So wealthy people live in the garden. I mean, that's why green always good.
Nabil Bonduque, nosso vereador.
Well, thank you for your lecture. Falar em português, que é mais fácil aqui para a gente poder se comunicar. Bom, nós tivemos, segunda-feira, visitando algumas áreas. Eu queria voltar a algumas questões que nós conversamos naquele dia. Nós temos, em São Paulo, temos alguns bons exemplos, como eu lhe mostrei, alguns parques lineares, como o Ticoatira, como o Parque Ecológico Tietê, que, de certa forma, estão baseados nessa mesma visão. Mas nós temos, fundamentalmente, 2 grandes obstáculos para poder levar adiante essa proposta aqui em São Paulo. Em primeiro lugar, o fato de grande parte dos nossos cursos d'água estão ocupados pelo sistema viário, por avenidas, porque a cidade acabou ocupando os rios que estavam desocupados, nos últimos 100 anos, com ruas, com avenidas, e dentro de um espírito que a cidade privilegiou o automóvel. Segundo lugar, a questão da habitação, que quem não tem habitação, numa cidade que a terra é privada e, portanto, tem dificuldade de ter acesso à habitação, as habitações foram para as áreas que deveriam ser das águas, os fundos de vale. Então nós temos favelas, como você conheceu ali na Zona Leste, na segunda-feira. A gente viu que grande parte das propostas da China, a gente vê os parques e lá no fundo nós vemos arranha-céus, edifícios muito altos, que é um modelo de cidade que eu queria que você falasse um pouco, desse modelo da cidade chinesa, que é um modelo onde, o que me parece é que, como é um governo que tem capacidade de rapidamente pôr em prática aquilo que se planeja fazer, que é diferente do que acontece no Brasil, se retiram as construções que estão no lugar das águas e se colocam as pessoas, as habitações, em grandes arranha-céus. Esse modelo é um modelo que aqui tem teria ou tem uma resistência, né? Há uma resistência em você transferir as pessoas, por exemplo, e das próprias pessoas, das favelas, das áreas que estão em áreas baixas, para edifícios altos. Eu queria saber como é que é a experiência das pessoas na China com essa transformação, que é a transformação de quem está, né, em casas, em áreas tradicionais de ocupação, para esses grandes prédios, grandes arranha-céus que são construídos nas cidades chinesas.
Yeah. Relocating is a big issue. Relocation, yeah. As I said, China's model not necessarily so good. Okay, we made many mistakes also. For example, in 30 years we overbuilt. We have built too much. Well, in a shortage of housing, but in China we are overbuilt. It's simply because the government promoting building houses and also because the land is public. That make it happen. So master plan in China works because we plan the housing areas, the river area, then we build houses, and by this process, the city make money from very cheap land into saleable land. Now that's not necessarily very good model, okay? But it do help to make this happen fast, to make a beautiful green system, build high-rising skyscrapers. But as I said, the other problem for that is we overbuild, oversupply. So if you combine them together, I think it can be work. We need to find a business model, a market-based model, which means you have master plan, you need a regulation. Which I think you compromise the law with these people demand. That I think maybe you need to get some kind of enforcement. For example, the East Favela area, people building in the river. That's illegal, right? You know that's illegal. You have to remove it. Now that I think you need a red line to say legal law. When I go and visit Brasilia, you have called a three-power ideology. You have law, you have administration, you have Congress. Three, but looks like you didn't enforce the law here. That's my impression. If you enforce the law, you make the plan work. But certainly you need to relocate this area. Otherwise, it's a human rights issue. Democracy, like American talking about democracy, because democracy sometimes not necessarily right. You need a regulation, you need a law to protect democracy. That's what I think. So in this case, I think you take care of the human right of housing and the human right of being get flooded. That's an answer. So build an apartment to relocate the people to save them from being flooded, providing them house. No, that's I think that should follow. As a political issue, but I'm not going to do too deep that. Yeah.
Boa noite. A minha pergunta vai um pouco de encontro ao que o Nabil falou, que gostaria de saber, na prática, a maioria dos exemplos que você nos mostrou foram de grandes rios e parques, mas eu recentemente tive dados da cidade de São Paulo que eu li que a prefeitura contabiliza 300 rios aqui na capital, sendo que, na verdade, podem ser mais de 800, sendo que 80% desses rios estão tampados. São rios, na verdade, que foram enterrados vivos. Então, a gente percebe quando tem as enchentes, quando chove. E aí, no caso que você nos mostra, me parece que são coisas que não estão totalmente interligadas. Por exemplo, esses pequenos córregos onde tem construções em cima, no caso de desapropriações, no caso de fazer novos cursos de sistemas viários, que você tem que fazer deslocamentos. Você tem, na prática, exemplos para nos dizer como fazer, nesse caso, onde esses córregos tampados, como fazer uma solução e dialogar com essas populações que já moram ali, né, que ocuparam e enterraram esses rios?
Yeah. Well, just as I said, the topography here is very beautiful because you divided this river into very small rivers, which make you very easy to control water actually. As I mentioned, the site I visited is the river Pakongfu. It's a good example. It's misused. You can, even you have, it's a huge area. It's about maybe 15 hectares or something. A huge area. So those area is a river at the source. It's a stadium, and it's paved. It's a parking lot, huge parking lot, and there's a valley. That can be fixed. Not because it's being owned by the government. It's already state-owned. It's a city-owned. But also, if you create this kind of designed, beautifully designed, it can make money. It's not. Not only is it possible, but also beneficial. For as I mentioned, it's a river we covered. The parking lot, it can create more vertical solution. Doubled, maybe doubled, maybe parking underneath or above, or some parking or trees together with a residential permeable, holding water, taking care of water, so that the water will not run into the city, will be stay here, be recycled here, or even on the rooftop. The pavement, you can become, certainly not paved, even make pavement can be, parking lot can be permeable. So there's all kind of solutions. I think it just changes the mindset from a simple industrial mindset into ecological. 3 principles in mind, you will change it incrementally, gradually, or even backyard. Even your backyard, you don't have to pave all the way, right? That's the idea. Yeah.
Vamos passar as próximas, uma série de 3, tá? Então quem tiver, primeiro a Renata vai falar aqui, depois mais tem uma lá do fundo e aqui, tá? Então vem vindo mais aqui para frente para eu poder passar. Então fazemos 3 questões em seguida, tá?
Okay, for me.
Em português again. Thank you very much. Muito obrigada. Realmente queria destacar que foram impressionantes, assim, conhecer os resultados, são muito impressionantes e muito inspiradores também. Porque essa semana, inclusive numa disciplina, né, que eu leciono com os alunos, a gente teve um debate e me chamou a atenção o pessimismo dos alunos, sabe, para como lidar com a questão climática. Então, acho que isso traz luz, né, para a gente pensar e até estamos fazendo um exercício de renaturalização de córregos aqui em São Paulo, um exercício acadêmico, né? Mas a minha pergunta é um pouco mais assim, técnica, relacionada aos projetos. Eu queria saber como é que são feitos os plantios, né? A questão das espécies, né? Se são novas espécies, ou se é regenerativo, ou se é um híbrido, né, desses dois. Como que a gente poderia pensar a questão da vegetação mesmo e das espécies, e a manutenção desse paisagismo também, se é muito complicada, muito cara.
Yes, hello, I am Patricia from Deppefel in Switzerland. I have a question. Thank you very much for this inspiring conversation. You really talk about in a way, trying to make some projects with the cities that are already built. But we know actually that in the next 10, 20 years, the big impact will be building all the infrastructures in Africa, for example. How do you see this? No, because you talk a lot about repairing, but how can you help the future land that we already have? How will you go about it?
Olá, boa noite. Eu queria agradecer muito. Tudo que você falou se encaixa perfeitamente na situação de muitas cidades aqui do Brasil, tanto aqui em São Paulo quanto em Recife. Em Recife a gente tem uma área de mangue muito extensa que ela foi aterrada ao decorrer dos anos, com o crescimento da cidade no geral. E nisso, a cidade histórica, principalmente, é afetada por causa disso. É justamente a área histórica onde foi começada a ser aterrada essa área de mangue, e aí são áreas de pontos de alagamento muito altos. Então, como gerir essa questão do alagamento e dessas soluções da Cidade Esponja, mas conseguindo manejar isso em relação a patrimônio histórico, a prédios que tem que ter um certo cuidado e que não podem ser remanejados, e até uma população que está ali pertencente àquele local. Então, como manejar essa questão da água, da cultura, da população, áreas de centro que são altamente... recebem um comércio muito grande e uma ocorrência de pessoas muito grande, de trânsito, de carros, e como manejar todas essas questões.
Well, we need to do some kind of a workshop or a project to answer. Yeah, each side is. Huh? We should do it. Each side is different. As I said, you have three kind of flood: local, which means whatever community level or urban inundation, that's local. Regional, which is caused by river, watershed, or global, sea level rising. Like Boston, it's sea level rising, caused New York, sea level rising. So it's a global. You cannot fix it by New York. You have to fix Amazon to save New York. That's what I speak when you're in New York. I say, you cannot build a wall. You have to pay money to Amazon to fix Amazon. Because, as I said, 40% of water from Amazon, Mississippi, Yangtze River, 40% come from all the river. We should stop. We should restore Amazon as a big sponge. Because I visited, certainly I will Pantanal, but I visited already Cidades. Those areas are all sponge. When you clear it, become agriculture. There's no place for water, virtually. Because this kind of culture is totally mechanical, right? So you have to fix those. So Brazil, I think, is so important right now because they are still growing agriculture, expanding. Otherwise, there's no hope for New York or Boston. No Boston, yeah. 40% water come from here, this groundwater. Yeah, so that's your question. We have to understand how your city get flooded. Is it regional or is it local or is it regional or global? If the sea level rising, it's a big problem. Local problem is sponge city, create a pond, you can virtually solve the local flood precipitation, because precipitation is heavier today. That's why you need more retention area, retention pond, like India, like you did in India. India, they have historically, they have tradition to retention pond, stepping pond to keep water for whole season. That solves the problem. Regional flood and regional drought, a local drought also. Yeah, similar question. Yeah, about maintenance. About the maintenance and how it's technical. That's why sponge. Water is a key. Driven by water. So when you look at this wetland, yesterday I visited your lake, beautiful lake here. Nature has order. Beautifully ordered. You have floating plant, you have tall grass, you have trees. No maintenance. Nature don't need maintenance. You have beautiful landscape. That's why the solution is to create a habitat. Yeah? And water is a determinant. Water is a determinant, dominant factor to create order. So use water as an order to create. If you have the water managed well, you need a minimum maintenance. In the case of wetland, if you have too much nutrient, like those river, the flower, as the trees will, the grass will abundance, overgrow. We call it overgrow. Now in that case, you need a seasonal, maybe a year you harvest it. Annual plant, you need to harvest it. Otherwise, I will let nature to grow. So most of our project, we actually plant some trees. Your tree you need to plant, but it's a underground cover. The ground cover. The annuals, perennial will naturally come in. Let nature take its place. So that's why eventually you create an ordered, nature ordered by water. You have dry water, dry land, very few, grass. Abundant water, you have floating perennials, for example. So that's a solution. So I think make use of water as a key. That's why minimum maintenance. Yeah. Sowing. To begin with sowing. Seeding. In a Bangkok project, we just seeded. Whatever possible native seed, just sow it. Very cheap.
Just remember, I have a question about Africa, not urbanized Africa, so affected. How to
fix Africa problem? You from Africa? Yeah. Yes. Yes, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So I totally agree. Well, India will be first. India, Africa, yeah, of course. As I said, 80% of the global population is still very poor, underdeveloped. So carbon is not a solution. Oh, both, yes, sir. Okay. Carbon is one of the solutions, but carbon, as I said, is difficult. Certainly you need to cut carbon, but even cut carbon, you cannot fix the globe because it's too late already. We have a common ground. I agree. You need to cut carbon. You need to reduce carbon. Yeah, absolutely. You need to reduce carbon as much as possible. Okay, but if you cut to even to zero carbon, the global is still worsening. That's what I point. That's why we need to put $1.3 trillion, as I mentioned, $1.3 trillion today for carbon. Instead of putting so much money, we need to put enough, at least the same amount of money, to the water. Because the water is an urgency. It is crisis. You need to adapt it. You need to solve the flood. You need to solve the drought. And water can be also a solution for climate itself, mitigation. So I'm not talking about adaptation only. I'm talking about actually mitigation also. because it's assumption. Okay, so my assumption statement is that 80% global water surface, global wetland disappeared already, and 40% of the sea level rising contributed to water, groundwater drop. You need to fix those. If you fix this, the assumption is that my concept is that we maybe already fix the globe climate, maybe reduce the temperature already, because it is so common to understand for you to feel that if you have a tree cooler, how much cooler? 10 degrees difference can be. 5 degrees in this case of the park. But unfortunately, this water is not built into the climate model. All the scientists didn't have the water in their model. So that's the problem. So we are misleading. We are misled by this model. That's my point. Yeah. So yeah. Well, Africa has a water problem, of course. Well, carbon will increase dramatically. That's certainly, you have to fix both. But to fix water is more urgent. Is more urgent because in Africa you have a similar kind of climate. You have dry, you have drought, but they have very productive climate, by the way. You can grow anything. The problem is that Africa, they didn't manage, they don't develop this agriculture technique yet. I was in Rwanda two months ago. They still burn and cultivate. This kind of very primitive technology. They didn't retain water on the slope, for example. They have 1,500 precipitation. Lot of water, enough water, like here, enough water, But during the wet seasons, run away. So the soil become very dirty, very dry. They have some very good NGO group there. They're doing very good job. I don't know what's the name. They created, a sponge, little sponge. Someone from some country, and immediately grow fast. They create sponge, catch water, and generate the green vegetation, and the green vegetation certainly abstract carbon. Now that's the solution for water. I think Africa should need a sponge planet. And easy, $1 per pit. I just roughly calculate, if you have $1 trillion invested in sponge planet, you virtually can fix it. The problem can be dramatically solved as a problem.
You can continue it outside later, but there's one question here and one question here. So I just very briefly, bastante rápido, porque nós estamos com tempo já curto. Então temos aqui, tinha ali, né? Aqui, ali. Qual a resposta? Desculpa, Chico, eu já estou me embananando. Então vamos passando aqui por essa ordem.
Obrigado pela palestra, uma honra ter escutado. Nas experiências em São Paulo que nós estamos aplicando um redesenho ecossistêmico do espaço público e fazendo o manejo integrado da água, a gente está encontrando alguns desafios. O primeiro é um problema gigantesco de lidar com os resíduos sólidos, os resíduos particulados. Então, isso, ao trazer a solução baseada na natureza, a gente também está expondo o tamanho do problema que a gente tem de resíduos. Então, eu gostaria de ouvir um pouco sobre como vocês estão lidando com resíduos lá. E a segunda questão ligada a isso é que, tanto do ponto de vista técnico, dos especialistas, quanto dentro do poder público, eu sinto que a gente precisa de uma grande recapacitação para mudar o óculos e mudar a mentalidade. Então, também escutar um pouco dos técnicos que vocês têm trabalhado, como é que têm lidado com isso. Muito obrigada.
Okay. No, that's a very important issue. How you train the mindset. My country is a top-down system, right? So I try to change the mindset of the top leadership. So I have 2 books. When you check its own website, it's Amazon, called The Letter to Leaders of China. That's a book. I have a book to talk to mayors. So I have actually textbook for mayors. I have given about 600 lectures to mayors. So it's more important, I have to say, more important to talk to academia. More important to talk to mayors than to academia. Academia is easy, they understand already. I don't have to give a lecture here, actually. It would be better if we have 160 mayors. We will try to change that. So next month I will be in Bogota. Bogota is called World City Summit. So I give a lecture, keynote speech. So there'll be 100 mayors. Now, so also be more effective. So that's I think we need to talk to mayors, councillors, decision makers. Well, in Brazil, maybe you have the grassroots voice also important. Now, that's why you need all kind of education, different levels. So media is important. Mass media, TV, television. I have a couple of videos on television which been received by 2 billion people, 2 billion times in China. Video talk. That can solve the problems, the grassroots culture, and also the top the decision maker. President Xi announced a sponge city. It is the president who announced we need a sponge city. Now that make it happen. Otherwise, it can be slow. 20 years. I have been doing this for 25 years until the president say we need a sponge city. Then become a national movement. Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Eu estou recebendo ordem de encerrar o evento. A Cássia vai fazer a última questão, depois na saída, porque vai fechar o prédio. A Bienal fecha às 8. Então a Cássia vai fazer a última questão, em seguida vocês podem fazer conversa direto com ele.
Parabenizar, só parabenizar. Eu sou conselheiro federal do Tocantins, do CAL, né? Eu queria parabenizar o IAB, né, por esse evento. Não é pergunta que eu vou fazer, mas eu vou fazer uma sugestão ao IAB e ao CAL que tentem levar ele, né, num evento da Confederação Nacional dos Municípios, que estão 5.000 prefeitos, né, ou também para a Frente Nacional de Prefeitos, que estão as maiores cidades do Brasil. Eu acho que nós devemos fazer urgente essa atuação, esse trabalho, para tentar levar ele. Acho que é muito importante. E parabéns pelo IAB e parabéns pelo evento.
Bem,
That's important. That's important.
gente, a Cássia falou que vai fazer... Faz a última.
Obrigada pela fala inspiradora. Então, em termos assim estratégicos, na verdade, ao curso do rio, seria importante haver um canal de refluxo contrário e, arrematando o canal de refluxo, é que as cavas são produzidas para que isso possa formar a esponja. A pergunta é, se o solo é saturado, ele também funciona?
Well, it's not a counter flow. Yeah, it just slow down the flow. Slow down. The very low wear. When you go to the deep slope, you need to slow down. Slow down the water. You will have the soil. You have trees into. Yeah, not wash away. Yeah, slow down, stepping down, maybe 1 meter high, 1 meter high, 1 meter high. So that's a technique for being used by the Chinese in the mountain area for 2,000 years, and it works very well. Instead of build a 30-meter high dam, you build a 30 low weirs, 100 kilometers long, but 1 meters. So that will slow down water flow. But when you slow down water flow, the soil will stay. The soil will stay. And trees can grow. And if you have tree grow, the bank will be stabilized. That's the whole process. Yeah.
Bem, gostaríamos de continuar mais, mas é impossível. Agradeço a colaboração, a presença de todos e o Kongjian por ter vindo, topado esse desafio de vir para o Brasil mais uma vez. Amanhã temos mais.
Federation.
Vamos trabalhar para isso. Vamos trabalhar para isso.